Hey, this is the first of a new form of video I want to try out where I talk about my opinions on topics on gaming, writing, creativity, or whatever else is on my mind. Today, I just wanted to talk about the infamous Mary Sue because I see a lot of the old hate for them coming back, and as someone who's been in these spaces for almost 20 years now, I want to put in my 2 cents. So, I want to talk about writing and roleplay today, and my controversial stance is that Mary Sues are good, actually, and before you get heated in my comments, just let me explain. So, writing and art is some of the only skills where communities around them seem to justify demonizing and ridiculing beginners. For some reason, it's seen as cruel and mean spirited to laugh at, say, a kid learning to ride a bike or someone learning the piano who can only play a few simple songs. But somehow, people expect brand new artists and writers to come out the womb painting and writing like the love child of Leonardo da Vinci and Shakespeare with a complete understanding of character analysis and design just pre installed into their brain, which is ridiculous and unreasonable. But before I get into that, can I just say that if you are sitting down with me to have a conversation about a character, whether it's someone's OC or a character from a movie or a book series, and I hear the buzzword Mary Sue come out of your mouth, I have immediately dismissed your opinion. Because 99 times out of 100, people tend to fall back on the term when they don't know enough about writing or character analysis to express why they don't like a character. So they just slap the Mary Sue label on them and call it a day. And that's just, it's not valid criticism. It's not. A criticism that begins and ends with the subjective notion that a character is either too perfect or doesn't have enough flaws is just vague and unhelpful. Moreover, after you're done explaining that, you have to then convince me that Mary Sues are inherently bad. There is an audience for wish fulfillment. There's an audience for self-insert characters that they can impress themselves into the universe with. Half of your most loved heroes of your favorite stories tick off all of the boxes of what you would consider a Mary Sue. Percy Jackson, Bella Swan, Edward Elric, Luke Skywalker all have Mary Sue traits, and that's just off the top of my head. Hell, the Warrior of Light in 14 is just a blatant Mary Sue. You cannot say they're not. And that's not a bad thing. They have these traits for a reason. Their purpose as the main character is to, number one, be special enough for you to take an interest in them, which means they have to be exceptional from the crowd in some way, and number two, provide a vessel for you to insert yourself into the universe with. Who doesn't want to be the kick-ass warrior of light who everyone loves and is the coolest, strongest person in the world? And if your argument is that the character you're criticizing is somehow different or more poorly written than any of the characters I listed, then you need to be able to articulate to me exactly how and why without simply crying Mary Sue. And if you can't do that, then you need to sit down and be quiet, because being able to articulate that point is the only thing that separates you from someone offering advice or just a common bully. From that point, I want to talk about why Mary Sues are good, actually, and we should be more welcoming towards them, or at the very least, not antagonize them. To make this point, I want to talk about the alt subculture real quick. In goth circles, we have this term for new goths just getting into the scene: baby bats. We were all baby bats once, and in my experience being in these cultures, people who ridicule or bully baby bats for things like not having all the right clothes, or not knowing everything there is to know about a goth band or whatever, are quickly shut down. I'm literally the first person in the room to intervene and tell an elitist to shut up when I see that happening. The reason we do this is because baby bats are the future of the subgenre, and when you scare them away by trying to humiliate them with surprise quizzes or gatekeeping music or bands from them, you are literally harming the goth community. Without new blood, the scene dies out. If the scene dies out, there's no more goth events, no more goth clubs, no goth music, because there's no audience, and that's how you kill a subculture. Ironically, do you know who's the most likely to perform this elitist behavior? Other baby bats. And it's usually because they're trying to impress the more established elder goths in the community because they're insecure about their own place in the subculture. They put others down because it's more easy to feel like a real goth when you feel more deserving of it than others. But we shut that down because protecting baby bats is just one part of preserving the genre. The other part is teaching other baby bats that that behavior is not cool, not tolerated, and will subtract you social points, not earn them. You're not impressing anyone with that behavior. You're just making yourself look like an asshole. The same goes for the roleplay community. The Mary Sue is the telltale symbol of a new writer. Most of the writers behind these characters are teens or young adults without a whole lot of writing experience. And if you are a new or young writer or role player watching this and you're afraid that your character might be a Mary Sue or not up to standard, let me be the first to tell you that no matter what you do, your first OCs and storylines are probably going to be bad. The same way a brand new piano player is not going to be playing Mozart on his first day, you are going to suck at writing. And you are going to suck at writing before you get good at writing. And guess what? You're probably going to write a Mary Sue. Because writing is a skill, and just like any skill, it takes time to develop. One of my first endeavors into fanfiction writing was an Inuyasha/Wolfsbane crossover with my Sparkle Wolf Mary Sue character that I posted all over DeviantArt, and I posted it on Zanga.com for the public to see with their eyeballs. And if that fanfiction didn't get perma-deleted when Zanga shut down, I would probably link it for everyone else to read here, just to show you where so many of us started. I really need you to listen to me for this part. Writing Mary Sues is good for you. That is where you nurse your love for your characters and your stories unabashedly without care for an audience. You need to be your first biggest fan. Your first motivation for writing and for roleplay should be to please yourself, not somebody else and not an audience. You are here to have fun. You don't owe anyone fucking Shakespeare for your unpaid hobby. If someone is upset with the way you write, send them your Cash App or your Venmo and tell them to pay you to give a damn. In the famous words of Jake Adventure Time,
dude, sucking at something is the first step towards being sorta good at something.
And before you sit there agonizing of the character that is going to be as not cringy as possible, I cannot stress this enough. You are a role player on an MMO. You are already cringe. Gamers are cringe to normies. MMO players are cringe to gamers. And role players are cringe to MMO players. We are the bottom feeders of bottom feeders. Who exactly are you trying to impress down here? Be cringe. Be free. Going back to my baby bats bullying baby bats analogy, the people who are the loudest about how much they hate Mary Sue's posting videos about how not to write one, etc., I have never met a single one of them who wrote well. I haven't. Those of you who are the loudest about how bad other people's OCs are always the most creatively constipated and boring writers I have ever met. And it's clear that your insecurities about your own writing ability is what's driving you to seek out and ridicule other writers you've deemed as worse somehow, just to boost your own heads. But bringing other people down is not going to make your writing better. Put others down, and then you sit there, stagnating in fear of your own writing, terrified to bring anything even slightly out of the box to the table because you've surrounded yourself with fellow elitists who will just as quickly bring you down as you have done to others. But while you're terrified to put any hint of creativity or fun into your OCs that doesn't break your self-imposed rules, those writers you just ridiculed are out there still having fun, and they are growing faster than you ever will as long as you sit there in your negativity. Like, we're playing pretend. It's really not that serious. Contrary to common belief, antagonizing and bullying so-called Mary Sue characters does not make someone improve at writing. It just scares them off from writing altogether, or it sucks out all the fun of writing and burns people out. The quality of their work will improve naturally over time the more they write and the more experience they get. But when you bully these people off the platform, you prevent that from ever happening and the community doesn't grow. All you're doing is killing a potentially great artist before they ever even get the chance to develop. That stagnates the community and eventually it will die out. Role players are already a minority. We can't afford to be chasing people away, especially young and new writers who are the future of the community. But to cultivate that future, you need to make space for these beginner writers to grow, which means being kind, no matter what kind of character they write. And also, including them or even role-playing with them is actually good for the community and even their own growth, because then they can learn from more experienced writers around them. And even if you don't want to roleplay with these less experienced artists, then at the very least, don't antagonize or ostracize them. Being mean to someone for not playing pretend properly is preschool behavior. You are old enough to know your ABCs, which means you are embarrassingly too old to be angry over how someone plays with their own Barbie dolls. And any attempts to justify that behavior just makes you look even more juvenile and pathetic. Grow up. And writing Mary Sue's isn't something that should be limited to only new writers. I think even veteran writers should have a space to indulge their own ideas and interests without care for pleasing anyone else. If I was going to write a bestseller and make a career out of my writing, then sure, I would put more thought into a better rounded character. But when I write my OCs for fun, I don't think about any of that technical crap. I just write from the heart, and if the character ends up being Suish, I embrace it. I just don't care anymore. I want to have fun. I already went through that crappy elitist phase back in 2013, and I surrounded myself with some of the most judgmental and annoying people that I don't even remember the names of anymore. Being a free writer is where I found the most lasting and meaningful relationships I had, and I have no interest in going back. Authenticity is where you make the most meaningful friendships and stories. Anyone who would deride you for your passions is not a real friend, and they're certainly not the kinds of people you should want to entertain in the first place. All of this to say, write what you want, how you want. You don't owe any of these judgmental clowns anything at the expense of your enjoyment. Go have fun.